Okay, we're recording. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining our monthly Sage 300 CRE webinar topic, multi-entity system accounting. So today we will give a high-level overview of some of the great enhancements and additional modules that are available to Sage 300 CRE users. We have some longtime users, some new users, some attendees here that are interested in upgrading to Sage 300 CRE. So in a few minutes, I'll bring in our longtime resource for Sage 300 CRE technical support certified consultant, Seth Myers. So Seth has been working with Sage 300 CRE Timberline for more than 20 years. Before coming to work for TAG, Seth worked in the CRE software division at Sage. As a senior support analyst, he earned multiple customer service awards. He wrote over 20 knowledge-based articles and training documents. He teaches software concepts from math to network, hardware configurations, installations to accounting workflows, and best practices. So we're really lucky to have him on our team. I'll go over a couple of quick features and then hand it over to Seth for some in-depth discussion of some of the capabilities within 300. So whether you are a service, contractor, property manager, developer, specialty sub, or perhaps you're in an organization that does it all, Sage 300 CRE will eliminate double entry and manual work involved with data flowing through all the various companies in one single entity, streamlining the operations and allowing you to see the full picture and the financial health of the organization. So we'll quickly talk about service management, property management, and then mobile projects. And then Seth will show you the benefits of My Assistant, Office Connector, intercompany transactions, and consolidated financial statements in Sage 300 CRE. So service management simplifies service call dispatching, field technician management, and billing. You're able to see the status of any service call, including the time the call is scheduled, the type of service to be performed, and the technician assigned to perform the service. So this is a screenshot of the dispatch board, gives you a nice snapshot there. Property management features a unique data structure that puts the lease document at the heart of the software, making it flexible enough to accommodate virtually any lease agreement, including multiple leases per tenant, multiple units per lease, or multiple tenants per lease. So mobile projects is a new thing with 300 CRE. Mobility within the system has been quite a push in recent years, and now with mobile projects, you have the capability to capture daily field reports and give field teams access to RFIs. So the best part of this application is that you receive a free license for 1 year if you own a project management license. So let me know if you're interested in more information about that. I'm happy to help you. At this time, I'll hand it over to Seth, and he'll carry on.
Thank you, Leilani. All right, so the first thing I talk about is the idea of intercompany accounting and how to get consolidated financials. I get asked a lot of times if I have a business unit that has different departments, for example, estimating, marketing, consulting, is there a way that I can segregate out their costs and then be able to create P&Ls and or potentially balance sheets for each of those different departments? And Sage 300 definitely is able to do that. They do it through a combination of both the concept of using prefixes as well as intercompany accounting. The intercompany accounting transactions, generally speaking, when set up, are all automated, but you do have the ability, for example, to enter journal entries as intercompany type transactions. In order to do different levels of consolidated financials and intercompany, usually we suggest that clients set up what are called prefixes in the system. And when they set up those prefixes, the prefix is just a number allocation for those different departments. And Sage allows you the ability to set up 3 sectioned prefixes in front of your base accounts. So for example, the first prefix may be your balance sheet level for your entire company. And then the second prefix and or third, if you want to use it, gives you the ability to further segregate your company into those different departments. And when you put in your transactions, say for example, accounts payable or your overhead transactions or even your payroll, you can separate it into those different departments and thereby later on creating your different leveled financial statements and your P&Ls at those levels. One of the common questions I get asked then is, well, okay, it's great that I can create a P&L at, say, the estimating department or the administrative department, but is there a way to then consolidate that all up into the system so that I can create a consolidated financial? And if I have another company I'm going to create at that top prefix, can I also do my intercompany transactions? And that system, when it's set up, is all seamless. It's all done in the background. When you have your intercompany transactions at your different prefixes, then what you would set up is a generic intercompany payable and an intercompany receivable, which you can see on the screenshot on the right side on that company setup. And all that does is it tells the system, hey, whenever I put in, say, a journal entry, for example, or maybe I put in an accounts receivable invoice, and I'm going to go from one company to another, this is the account I want you to use for the automated AP/AR intercompany transactions. When you get done doing that, then you can create your financial statements at different grouping levels as well. But again, all of this is typically all automated in the back end. You don't have to worry about what transactions are created, but you do have the ability to do that separately. Go ahead and go to the next slide then for me, Leilani. Okay, and then when you get done, you want to run your different financial statements. So when you create your financial statements, again, you can create them at the department level, for example, for just your estimating department. You'll notice on the left screenshot, we have those prefix groups. And what we typically do is we'll set up a prefix group at the consolidated level, meaning combine all of my prefixes. And then we'll typically set up different financial statement groupings based on each of those different prefixes that you're going to do, so you can further track the intercompany out or in transactions, as well as the normal expenses like overhead and payroll and estimating and that type of thing. So then when you create your financial statements over on the right side, you'll notice that we have the income statement and our balance sheet. The balance sheet typically is the parent prefix level, and then at the child prefix levels are all the different income statements, and you can combine them. One of the questions I get asked a lot is when I create my different GL accounts, is there a way in the financial statements, for example, in my income statements, could I just lump all of my cost of sales accounts? I don't really need to see, the material versus labor versus equipment. And we can definitely combine multiple base accounts and multiple prefixes into one subgroup. So you have a lot of flexibility that way. And you can create as many different prefix groups as well as many different financial statements that you may want, and then run them accordingly. When you print your actual financial statements, it'll ask you, hey, are we going to do this prefix group or this prefix group, or do you want to do the consolidated one? And then you run it and it prints out. And you can run those over and over as many times as you need, months back, months in the current forward months, and you're fine. It's not something you have to recreate each month. It's just a one-time setup. Okay, next slide. So after you have all the different data folder departments set up and potentially multiple companies, a lot of times you want the ability to create reports. So for example, you might say, hey, I've got aging reports that I'm running on my balance sheet level. I've got multiple departments and I want to run an automated report for each of the department heads so they know where their expenses are coming and going. And the tool that we typically recommend is called My Assistant, an integration software with Sage that literally is your automated assistant. And basically it creates emails for whoever you want, whether it be internal in your office or external, say your vendors or your customers, at some automated schedule that you decide when you set up the task. And then it will email information, whether it be just literally a solid email that says, hey, you've got XYZ going, or you can also have it attach things like different PDFs, Word documents, Excel documents, pretty much anything you want. So what I usually tell people is if there's a report you typically say, hey, I need to see this report every Monday morning at 8 a.m. when I come in the office, that's a great use for My Assistant. Or if you say, hey, I want the system to send out an email to all the PMs so that when they set up a job, if they forget to put in a value on a custom field, for example, it sends them an email so that I don't have to go check all their work. Another common one, for example, is my vendor's insurance is expiring. I don't have time to track it. is there any way to send out all that information before it expires? And you could set up a My Assistant task that, for example, would say 45 days before their insurance expires, it sends out an initial email and says, hey, your insurance has expired in 45 days. Please send us all your new forms. And then you could set up another one that's, say, maybe a week before it expires, and you say, here's all the forms I need you to fill out just in case you've missed them. And it's all automated in the background for you. Okay, go ahead and go to the next slide. So when you first install My Assistant, it comes pre-built with what are called tasks. And those tasks are based on the different modules that you've purchased through Sage and what your licenses are. So for example, in this screenshot, I pretty much have most of the accounting modules as well as project management and payroll. And then it'll group those different tasks accordingly. Go ahead and go to the next slide, Leilani. So for example, in the accounts payable section, I just took a couple of sample shots of some of the tasks that are built in there. So for example, you can have invoice management tasks where it'll send out an email if you've got discounts that are expiring. You want to send your AP clerk an email and say, hey, we need to pay these invoices. The discounts are going to be taken within a couple of days if we don't pay them. Also, you'll notice there's some vendor compliance issues. So you could send out lien waivers. If you guys are tracking lien waivers in your system through the subcontractor compliance module in AP, if you maybe have a whole stack of them on your desk, you could send your AP clerk a message, say weekly, and say, hey, here are the outstanding lien waivers that haven't been received. Do we actually have them? And then you could send out another My Assistant task, for example, that sends the email out to those vendors and says, hey, we haven't received your lien waivers, please send them back. And you could actually attach a PDF to that email that they could then sign and send back to you. On the job cost ones, for example, one of the big ways to make money on jobs these days is to have change orders that are approved, the owner side change orders, because from what I've seen on a lot of clients, we bid out our jobs at a fairly low profit margin. And so any way to get a little extra cash inflow is always good. And that's typically done by multiple change orders. And so there's a lot of pre-built tasks that will track those change orders. One of the common ones that I implement nowadays actually is the one where it says change orders not that have been denied, because a lot of my customers want to be able to track and say, hey, we process maybe 50 change orders on a job and it doesn't seem like we're making that much. And so they start going through and they find that a lot of their change orders were denied for whatever reason, some good, some bad. So they want to keep track of how many change orders are denied per job so they can start analyzing and saying, hey, is this a customer we want to continue working with? Maybe they're not as profitable to us as a business as what we were hoping. As well as on the other side, the same logic is you want to see who's the good customers. And so there's a pre-built task that shows all your approved change orders, which can also be helpful for your PMs as well to know maybe they need to follow up with some of their change requests to those owners. So this is just a sampling of a few of the pre-built tasks out of each of those modules. Okay, and then Leilani, next slide. So still in line with the idea of automating your data and trying to pull information out of the system, one of the common things now that we see is a lot more people are wanting to track their information in Excel. A lot of my clients will provide raw data to, say, a controller or one of the analysts at the company, and then they'll create different pivot tables and charts, and they'll analyze the data, and they may spend hours and hours going through this data. One of the integration points that Sage has is Office Connector. And Office Connector essentially is an add-in to Microsoft Excel. And what it does is it integrates with your Sage Timberline, Sage 300 data, and it pulls all that data based on different criteria that you build into the templates. Pulls that data into Excel into different formats that you can then look at. The Office Connector, you probably have seen it when somebody's done an install on your machine. There's a little gold diamond on your desktop and it says Launchpad. And when you look at it, it has some starter reports, and those come with your Sage install that you can run and look at and tinker with. On top of that, once you purchase the modules, you have the ability to create your own templates through that Sage Office Connector query. You also have the ability to use the write back function. So if you're familiar with the idea of ODBC, some of you may have Microsoft Access databases that integrate with your Sage 300, where you can write certain information back, like updating a vendor address or updating job information. So Office Connector Write gives you the ability to create your own templates, again, that are, you know, visually more user-friendly, and you can write certain data back into the system. If you're wanting to import transactions, so that would be things like importing payroll checks, importing estimates into the system, your job cost estimates, importing AP invoices, accounts receivable invoices, that type of thing. You can create Excel templates or workbooks that have the formatting that your users may be familiar with, but in the back end, it does all the programming to create those import files and then actually pushes that data into the system. So you don't have to create those different import formats like you used to in Sage. And then the last big add-on for the Office Connector is the Office Connector Financials. And what I usually tell people is, if you like to have your balance sheet or your P&L in Excel, rather than trying to export it out of Sage through its canned reports, you can actually add on this module and it will pull all the data for you and create those financials. And then with those financials, there's the ability to do what's called drill down, where you literally could double click on a number in, say, your P&L, and it would open up another tab in that spreadsheet that shows you all the transactions that are related to that number. You're done looking at it, you close the tab, you go back to your P&L, pick another account and double click on that, and it opens up all the raw data. So it's similar in logic to your inquiries where you can drill down, but it's already in Excel for you in a nice, clean looking format. Go ahead and go to the next screen. So like I mentioned, there's the gold diamond on your desktop that says Office Connector. It may say Launchpad, somebody may have renamed it, but basically when you come into it by default, you always have that starter tab. And this is the first six templates that Office Connector creates and license and bundles with their starter pack to give you an idea of what it can do. The very first time you run it, you get, I believe it's still 60 days to tinker with it. After 60 days, they do ask that you license it because it is working with your Sage data. When you purchase the additional modules, depending on which modules or plugins for Office Connector that you purchase, you'll get additional tabs. For example, you'll notice the Import tab and the Financials tab. Go ahead and go to the next screenshot, Leilani. So, for example, if we click on the Reports tab, these are all the pre-built templates that come in the report section. So you have things like your AR aging by customer, it's already in Excel that way. Your GL financial statements and financial statements with comments, where you can literally type in comments, save it off to your hard drive and keep it for later use. There's a lot of job cost ones, there's property management ones, as you can see, payroll ones, and then there's also those write ones down at the bottom. And what that does is it writes data back. So for example, your write JC cost to complete, you can fill out a spreadsheet, click on a button, and it pushes all that data back into your cost to complete field on your cost code sections in job cost. You can also do things like updating your payroll employee information. You may have limited licensing for the payroll module, but if you purchase the Office Connector Write, it gives your clerks the ability to go update things like an address or an exemption or filing status for your employees in Excel versus having to go into the payroll module. On the right side towards the top, you've got the Import tab. These are all the pre-built imports. So basically any import functionality you've got in Sage, meaning like AP import invoices, job cost import direct cost, that type of thing, any of those imports, they've pre-built the format for you. So you type in the numbers, push a button, it imports. You don't have to go through the help topics anymore to figure out the layout and what needs to be done. And then on the financials, as I mentioned, those are your pre-built financials. You'll notice a tab called Recurring GL Entries. It gives you the ability, when you purchase the Office Connector Query Designer, you can create your own templates, and then you could create a brand new tab. So, example, in this one, I created one just called Recurring GL Entries. I created a template for a customer that allows them to import their transactions. A lot of times they'll say, hey, I've got entries every month. I type it in. There's not a ton of them, but I type them in every month, and I don't have to do that. We can create a tab in here and a task so they can just import, and they have the same template format every month. Type it in, push it into the general ledger module. With the last tab, the tutorials, they do give some YouTube videos, and they do update those tutorial videos and add more of them to that tab as each of the new versions are implemented. If you want to learn how to do the programming, for example, like how to build a basic starter template, they've got YouTube videos, as well as here at TAG, we can also teach that and answer questions and build out templates for you as well. And go to the next tab. Alrighty, at this point, I know it's a bit of an overview, but does anybody have any questions that we can answer? All right, sounds like everybody's kind of quiet. So if you have questions or you think of something, or you want more in-depth information or demo on some of the things we showed, definitely contact Leilani. I'd be happy to show you guys that and answer questions in more detail as well. Leilani, I'll turn it back to you. I think you might be muted, Leilani. All righty, well, there might be some technical difficulties on the muting side of it for Leilani, but if, like I mentioned, if anybody has any questions, definitely let us know. I'd be happy to jump in and show you a quick demo on detail any of this extra information. Leilani can also help set up those as well. And I want to thank everybody for joining today, and all of you have a wonderful rest of your week.
Thanks, Seth.
Thanks, Leilani.